by his father. What I remember is my father told me that his father set him up with a position in the CIA. But I never asked how it happened. But later, I got a little research done, and my father's father was a member of the Porcellian Club at Harvard, which was a very much the one club you want to be in. How he got there, not sure. But he was a descendant of Theodore Roosevelt, my grandfather. So, you know, connections and all that surely must have had something to do with that, right?
That too.
But even people with connections could not get into that club. So whatever he did, I have no idea. Never talked to my grandpa when he was around to ask.
Yep.
But my father told me that his father, and my father knew that I was not involved, aware of politics, and wasn't interested in current events so much as I was in my spiritual, because I'm the Bible-believing son. But he nevertheless shared with me that his father was traveling across the Atlantic with Joe Kennedy Sr. And I never at the time thought to ask, well, why was he doing that? But what I do know is my grandfather was selling wine at one point. Well, there was the bootlegger thing going on, and I don't know if that's the reason why I didn't hear much about it. All I know is that my father told me that when he was traveling across the Atlantic with Joe Kennedy and his wife, that he had never seen a more gracious woman than Joe Kennedy's wife.
Whoa.
And
wow, look what she produced.
All those Kennedys. And so then, my father, as I say, was set up into the CIA by the connections. At the time, you know, it was the old boys club, right?
It's the way it worked.
And so he ended up 17 and a half years and just couldn't take it anymore. So we were in South America, where I was born at the time. Then we came to D.C. And then I grew up mostly in the Florida Keys. I was in D.C. for a few years. And then we went to the Keys. I was 6 years old. And I was there until 13. We had a fishing resort. My father ended up being unfaithful. He ended up having things going on.
Yep.
And so my mother moved to Camden, Maine. And that's what brings us to Maine. My father's father invited my mother and the boys up. It was really my step-grandmother probably that got him to do that, because my step-grandmother was very well known in Camden as a very devoted,
Yep. And
gracious woman. And so I went to high school in Camden.
Yep. Yep.
And then had been different places in New England.
That's real Maine up in there. Yep, in Camden. You're in Maine, for sure.
Well, it's along the coast, so it's really a cosmopolitan town to a large degree. It's not the same as, certainly it's the opposite of inland Maine, because it's obviously a money town.
Yeah.
But my mother's been there all these years, and it's a beautiful town.
Yep.
But it's definitely a place where, you know, there's you won't see a lot of poverty. You'll see maybe one or two trailers in the entire town, and that's just because that street is still permitted to have. There may be a few other places, but it's very rare. But we are. I'm down in the Portland area now because I have a brother that needs support. He's at the Barron Center. He had a stroke a few years ago. He was a chef and he ate whatever he wanted, and he had a massive stroke and managed to live. And at least he can communicate, even though he can't speak words. His mind works, and he can say yes or no, and we can work out 50% of whatever it is he wants.
Can he write?
He doesn't try to do it. If he can, he doesn't try. He's content with what we do when we.
How old is he?
2 years ahead of me. I'm 58.
Okay.
But I'm here because I'm the only family member around that can see him more regularly than the others. There's another one is available,
That's
but
nice of you to do it too, though. I'm going to have to say.
Well, I'll tell you, if I were in his shoes, wouldn't I want someone to come?
Of course you would, and I would too. But how many will come and do it? Not that many.
But the funny part is, whenever I go over there, I feel like I'm the richer for it. I've gotten to know all the people over there like family. I'm just as eager to see them now as my brother.
You're an exception. You're an exceptional human being. I can tell you right now.
Well, I'll tell you, years ago, nursing homes were places of death, and they had the smell of urine in the air, but I don't notice that anymore. I can't even smell it anymore.
So they've come up a little bit.
No, I've come up a little bit. I don't smell it because somehow the Holy Spirit got me beyond that.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'm aware now. I really can't. The funny thing is, I can't tell the smell in the air now.
That's amazing.
But when I first went in there, like anywhere else, you know, you can smell people's systems shutting down. There's just that little scent in the air of death.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Lord took it away because he knew I needed to see my brother. And the Lord in his mercy, because I didn't like it, to be honest with you. But the Lord also would have brought me beyond it either way, because when you have love, you can roll up your sleeves and get involved and deal with whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting story. I'll tell you, that is very heartwarming.
I tell you, it's true. Those people over there, they're growing on me, and you know what? They are grateful, even though a lot of them have terrible things happen to them. And
God bless them.
I tell you, there's one guy who's struggling because he's a stroke victim like my brother, and he's not taking it the way that my brother Jeremy is. You can tell he's angry, and I just try to calm him down when I see him.
That's all you can do.
He says, well, that's good for you that you could say this about that and so on, but that's not how it is, you know, and I got to work with someone. But guess what? I love talking to him because you never know.
That's right.
Quietly, he might appreciate that I'm
Could be the turning point.
I'm just not going to take it. I listen to him, but I'm not going to let him. Deep down, he really does have a loving heart, but he has such a heavy cross to carry that he's going to test anyone to see if they're loyal to him. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine told me that he told this guy one day, oh, I see you're becoming like the rest of them. This was a CNA that worked there, certified nurse's assistant. This guy, Steve, who wears a baseball cap and half his body is shut down and the other half is not very useful. They'd have to do almost everything. He might be able to grab something on the table and do this, and that's about it. My friend told me, the CNA friend, you know, he told me one day, I see that you're becoming like the rest of them. Meaning no longer dealing with me and caring about me the way you used to. Just so busy just stepping in and doing this, that, and the other that you're forgetting to slow down and be kind. And that guy, my friend, he went home thinking about that and he realized, oh boy, I do not want to just become a machine. I signed up to take care of my elders. Well, wouldn't you know it? He goes back after praying and he says, I'm going to make sure that I don't do anything to make this guy think that I'm turning into a robot on autopilot. Because when you're taking care of people, you do not do that on autopilot. You say, how are you doing today? You give them a hug. What can I help you with? You need a sweater? I'll get you one. Oh, you need your shoe tied? Okay. Did you want vanilla or chocolate? This guy is on the ball. But he was checked by this man one day. He said, I see you're becoming like them. It scared the daylights out of my friend. Because he's not that way, but he was starting to do things the way that other nurses and the CNAs. Because it's easy to do.
Yeah, it's easy to do.
Someone's crying in the next room over and you just say, well, leave it alone.
It's easy to do. That's it. That's it in a nutshell. It's easy to do. It's a hell of a lot harder to exude compassion.
Isn't it?
Yep.
And so now when I go, if I see somebody crying in a room, or if I can kind of look in and just say, hey, how's it going? Or I don't know them all, but I tell you.
But if you can do that, my friend, if you can do that, just a few words, they appreciate it, and it'll be a source of support.
I tell you, I would want it if I was on the receiving end.
I would want it. I would want it.
You know what this friend told me? My friend? A prior shift would leave somebody in their excrement in the bed for 8 hours because it was a night shift, and they left it over to the next shift coming up in the morning. Does that sound like proper care? You know what this guy did? He was told in a lunch hour, you can take your lunch now, it's your lunchtime. He said, I can't do that. This lady's sitting in her stuff. They said, no, that's okay, just take your lunch. You can take care of that after lunch. He said, no, I did not sign up for this. I signed up to take care.
I would have said the same thing, and I'm sure you would have too.
I would hope I would have as well.
I'd have said,
And
I
he
can
cleaned-
get lunch later on. Right now, that lady is sitting in something that I got to take care
They
of.
were going to leave her like that as leaders of the unit. Is that crazy?
Of course it is.
But that's what happens when you lose your vision.
Yeah. Yep. Now, who the hell knows? I don't know how long they were there. The person you're speaking of, how long he was there working at that facility. But what may happen as you see this stuff from day to day, and I'm talking now year after year. Who knows? You might have been there 10 years seeing this stuff every single day. You might harden up to it and lose your compassion. Who the hell knows? You don't know. If
You don't know. You don't know.
You don't know.
One lady put it this way. I was telling her about this CNA that I just told you about, certified nurse assistant, and how he loved the people, and how beautiful it was compared to some of them that really seemed to have it just as a job. And the lady, this was a cashier at another store around here, she said to me, you know, I was a veterinarian until I couldn't do it anymore. I just didn't have the intestinal fortitude or whatever. But she said, I love my job. And what we used to say to each other is, as soon as you are no longer doing it out of love for what you're doing, you need to have a different job.
Yeah, yeah.
They were talking about veterinarian, but it's the same idea.
It's the passion. If you lose the passion,
Then you need to find a different
Find a
job.
different job.
And that was the expression they had.
ASAP.
They would tell each other, as soon as you no longer care, you need to go somewhere else. Isn't that sad?
Yep.
They would burn them out.
Yeah, yeah. It's
No,
sad
no.
that we're all human. We have our limitations. And
And let's face it, we're all going to be heading into the point where we're going to rely on somebody
you
someday.
said it.
I mean, you're 88, I'm 58,
I'm
and
not far from it. I have tried to evaluate myself every day to a certain point, to a certain degree, and ask myself, are you still the same as you were yesterday, or has something changed? I'm trying to catch it before if it happens, to catch it before it goes too far, and maybe who the hell knows? You might be able to turn it around and save a few years. You might be able to extend yourself for another year or two if you recognize it and make the proper adjustment. Don't know.
well, my name is Jonathan, and your name is
Ed,
Ed. Thank you for taking the time. I have to tell you a funny story.
go ahead.
I was about 10 years of age. We went to Italy as part of our trip to Europe.
I've been there.
I know that. And the funny thing is that we were one day on the streets of Italy, or in some store in Italy, one of the cities, and I saw a line of people, and all these Italians were leaning on each other's shoulders in line. And I wasn't a family because it went longer than a family unless it was a very big family. So I realized these are strangers leaning on each other. And I said, Dad, look at this. They're all leaning on each other. He said, this is Italy, son. They do that here. Is that funny?
That is.
Because if you touch an American, they'll think you're weird.
I know it. I know it.
But these guys are leaning on each other. And my father said, this is Italy. Is that funny?
It is. I don't remember seeing that, to be honest with you.
Oh, I don't
Who
know.
the hell knows? It might only be southern Italy. I was in northern Italy.
I don't know, but I just remember that funny
knows?
experience.
It may be a habit they have in southern Italy, but I didn't see it because I was in northern Italy.
But let's face it. I should technically have a little Italian blood in me because I'm always putting my hand on people's shoulders like this. And some people, they've been abused or whatever, and they jump back. My father was always that way. He'd kind of be hands-on with people.
Yep.
And if I like somebody and I feel like they're friendly enough, I'll end up with my hand on their shoulder. It's just part of my thing.
I've done it too. Many, many times.
Right. But like I say, the Italians probably do more of that than.
The Italians probably do more of that.
And
I think you're right.
but I think that's a nice trait. I think it's a very nice thing to put your hand on a shoulder.
I think it is.
I think it's a great thing.
I never object to it. I don't feel any negativity there at all.
No, but the nice universal thing is a good handshake. You know that Everyone knows what that
You
is.
start out with that, but then if the guy wants to put his hand on my shoulder while he's making a point, I'll just listen. Once I feel that hand, I know he's excuse me, he's really trying to impress me with something. I'm going to listen twice as.
That's so funny. I love it. Well, it's such a pleasure to get to know your husband a little bit.
This is my
And-
wife Sandy. Did you go by John?
Jonathan, John, whichever one.
Yeah.
Sandy, it's a pleasure. And I got, we've had a great talk.
We did. Oh yeah.
And I want to know how you both met. Were you going to tell me that, or were you trying to remember?
I was trying to remember. I can't remember how we met. Can you? Yeah, go ahead. Women never forget anything.
Yeah, he lost the first wife.
I do know that because he told me.
And then I think we met because of the friend introduced. I used to work at Kennebank. Yeah, and friend introduced for us. Yeah.
Kenny,
And then we start met.
she worked down in Kennebunk when I first met her.
I
And I
see.
think I was down in Kennebunk. I think the Coast Guard. I was still in the Coast Guard, right?
No, you retired already.
Oh, why did I retire?
Yeah. One of the friend, the one she know me and she know you.
So the one that passed away is the. But you knew his wife.
No, I don't.
Oh.
I met him after he lost the first one.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having sharing the baby with us. Look at that face. Look at the face. You are a sweetheart. Oh boy, what a nice job. Is that not a beautiful job?
Very smart. Very smart. Very smart.
What a job you have.
Oh, that is,
To think you get paid money to love on a baby.
that's smart. That's a smart baby.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh, thank you. What are you doing now, John?
Well, I'm doing advocacy work for a gentleman who's African American from Roxbury, Massachusetts, which is a rough area. He came up here 9 years ago to avoid having to inherit his brother's gang in Roxbury. He never had a criminal record. He married a white Maine girl here. They didn't do too successfully, and then they ended up having children right at the time he was thinking about backing out of the relationship. Once the children were produced, he decided to stick it out. She ends up having a relationship with somebody else. Long story short is that she gets the children and he's without the children, even though she's the one that cheated on him. And she said that he was abusive to her. Well, what she was stating was that he was abusive because he said that he thought she was cheating on him. That's how they described the abuse. Well, in fact, that was what exactly she was doing. So the state awarded the woman the children on the basis that he was being abusive for saying that I think you're cheating on me. Then she moves in with state-supplied housing and has the guy that she's cheating with move in 2 years ago, and it's now been this whole time. And now the new guy that's been there is abusing the children, but the DHHS doesn't want to admit it because they already put the children there. But it gets more complicated. They don't want to admit it partly because they know that Jessica's uncle is a registered sex offender and that boy showered with his uncle, and she stated it for the record on the DHHS files. So they know they let the cat out of the bag because somebody stupidly wrote it down on their report. When Don Juan Moses and I saw that, we realized that why the attorney representing him also wanted to back out. The attorney realized when she started to say, what's wrong with this? The older boy had showered with this man, and this lady continues to allow this child to go over to get babysat there. And so the long story short is that they don't want to admit that they're wrong. So I'm doing advocacy work for this man to help him get his kids back. And it's at we're going to the Supreme Court level now because the judge gave the children to her, even though we brought all this evidence forward. But what happened is the judge pushed our evidence aside because I wasn't allowed in the courtroom because I'm not an attorney.
Yep.
And so they left this guy like a guy in the middle of piranhas. He doesn't know the law. And they would pull the wool over his eyes by destroying all his exhibits so that he had nothing to show the judge. They just push it all aside.
Is that here in Portland?
Right here in Portland, Cumberland County Courthouse.
Unbelievable.
But the good news is that we are believing that the Supreme Court will give him a chance to finish up the appeal process. He was late in filing something. They said we're canceling the appeal. We had to show them why we were late. He doesn't have an attorney. He's losing his trailer. He's suffering persecution at work.
Oh,
And
how old a man is he, may I ask?
he's 40. And the point is this. He loves his children to death. He's very good as a parent. And I'm doing this advocacy work because it's time for us to hold the government agencies accountable. If they do something wrong, they've got to start admitting it. And so that's why I'm writing everything, and I'm doing a documentary on his case that will, I hope, maybe go into something like a movie, so that we can help people realize that everybody makes mistakes, including government agencies. And you got that right? We know that's true. But some government agencies can act as though they're, because somebody said something, that's just how it is. And we're trying to say, no, if somebody does something wrong, it doesn't matter who it is. If somebody does something wrong, they should take responsibility for it. Right?
If you can find out exactly what they did.
That's the point. And that's how you get them in checkmate. You play chess?
Yeah. No.
You ever play chess? Checkmate is when there's no wiggle room.
Yeah.
There's no place you can go. Checkmate. I believe that the way we're going to win this is the checkmate of saying, watch this. You knew that Jessica's uncle showered with a registered sex offender as the Department of Health and Human Services. You knew it 2 years ago and you never reported it to the police because you already had put the children with the mother, and so you didn't want to look bad. Do you see what I mean? You've got to catch them in a lie if you're going to win against the big guys. You've got to catch them doing something terrible. And you're right. You've got to have your ducks in a row.
Yep.
But that's one of the things we've got. And then we have some other things as well. So you might read about us in the newspaper someday.
I'll be looking. Yeah, I'll be looking for it.
We're not doing it to get in the papers, but it may take having to go to the papers to put a light on.
Yeah, a little backing from the local populace, let us say.
A lot of times they get away with a lot because they work in the dark. They don't work out where people can see.
Yeah.
They work quietly. And especially true for the Department of Health and Human Services dealing with family-related things like child abuse or domestic issues, or mostly with children. It's very quiet because they want to honor the privacy of the family, which is good. However, the flip side, the other side of that is very evil. Because everything is so quiet, because it's called confidential, because it's confidential, they can get away with doing very bad things and nobody will be able to say anything.
It's never brought to light.
It's never brought to light.
Yeah.
And so what we are doing is bringing things to light by my writing. I write every day. I write 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and I'm putting this in a series of books. And I'm putting it out first as a website, then I'll take it and put it in books, then get into audio, radio, television. We're going to let it grow on its own. We're doing our part. We're just two men. We cannot do everything.
Good luck with it.
We're just moving step by step. But the main thing I'm saying is don't take a biased position and give the children to a woman just because she's a woman. If she is sleeping with a new man and that man is abusing the children, then you take the time, and those children must be protected. And that's what we're doing. But what they do in America is they give the house and the children to the woman sometimes when they should not.
Yeah.
But they often will give them to the children to the mother.
Yep.
But it's not always the best choice. Some of those women do not care.
I'm surprised.
And some of those men are good men.
Yep.
But to say that most of the time the children should go to the women, maybe so, but do not allow yourself to develop a biased opinion. Don't have a biased opinion or prejudiced opinion that, oh, that's a woman, I believe her story over the man. No, you've got to listen to both of them very carefully. And that's what we're doing. We actually interview everyone. We communicate. We actually record the conversations with some of these people, and then we put it in the paper so that we actually have everything in place.
You are the evaluators.
We are the evaluators. You just
Someone's got to do it, and you're doing it.
You just nailed it. He just nailed it.
Someone's got to
We are doing the work that the Department of Health and Human Services was supposed to do.
Yes.
Isn't that crazy? You nailed it.
It is.
You nailed it.
It is crazy.
I love that. I never thought of that word. He just helped us. We are the evaluator. Woo!
God bless you for it.
Thank you, my brother.
I'll tell you
Thank
about
you.
it.
I love you. You're beautiful people.
Love you too.
Beautiful people. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your little time here.
Hope see you again here.
Of course, I'm sure. Do you come here sometime pretty often?
Yeah, we come a lot.
Perfect.
For lunch and shopping.
Tell me your names one more time.
My name is Sandy.
Sandy
Sandy and Ed.
and Ed.
Ed.
I've got it now.
Yeah.
Ed and Sandy
Yeah.
and Jonathan.
Yeah.
And so, do you have children?
Myself, I don't.
You don't?
Have three.
3.
2 boys, 1, but they all grow up.
I know, but you're still their spiritual mother now.
Yeah. You're the spiritual mother. He's right.
Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
Ed and Sandy. I got it. All right.
John, nice meeting you.
Thank you, my brother.
Wish you the best.
Thank you.
You know what? In almost the same story that I read from my own country, it just happened not too long ago. A husband and wife divorced, and then I don't know what the process. The woman got the kid, and end up one girl, the kid died because the woman remarried and the guy he abused the kid.
That's exactly the point.
Yeah.
Because the new guy is not going to care about those kids.
Yeah.
In many cases, the new guy is not going to like those kids, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the big problem that we're dealing with right in our case.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what country are you from?
Thailand.
Thailand. Now, I always get all of these places confused, but someday I'm going to put a map out and look at Africa and look at all Asia and get everything just in place. But
I do the same thing.
But thank you for sharing. So you're telling me that because you realize there's a need for us to look at that.
Yeah.
You're right.
I always think about that. Like you say, it doesn't mean gonna have to give the baby to either one before make a, before the judge really investigate and see what these two people, either father or mother, before let them have a kid.
In other words, do a deep, proper investigation.
Investigate, yeah.
You're exactly right.
Yeah, it's
And-
not automatic. Oh, boom.
The kid can't do it.
That is
Someone's
exactly
gotta do
right.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's that? The kids can't do it?
The kid can't do it. But yet the kid's the pawn in the whole thing, you know what I mean?
The kids are what?
The pawn,
They're the pawn.
you know, in the whole thing.
They're like the pawns on the chessboard.
Yeah.
They're the little pieces on the chessboard.
Yep.
They don't have any power. The children.
And someone's got to make sure that this child is hooked up with parents that are caring.
I love it. You guys, you both helped me today. You really did. You helped me to do what I'm doing.
Oh,
Because that's what happens. When you ask people's opinion and advice, and you ask enough people, you're going to get a better picture. What you shared with me, I needed to hear that. And same thing with you about the evaluators. You said you were the evaluators, and you said about that case over in Thailand.
Yeah.
where they gave the children to the woman,
The mother.
but the mother had a boyfriend that didn't like the children, and one of the children died.
Yeah. And
John, I
many,
want you to
many
write a book.
cases,
Please write a book
You want me to write a
so
book?
I can read it. Write it. I don't care what you write about, but I think you got that in you.
I'm going to do it.
Do it.
I will do it, and I'll show you the book when it's done.
Do it, and I'll meet you here. Have one in your hand because when you leave, I want to have it, and I'll give you whatever you ask for.
I'll tell you what, I'll do better than that. I learned a way to put a book together. Nowadays, you can do your own books. You can create, you know, the computer has changed everything.
Oh, has it?
You can have your own publishing
we
house.
don't like to read computer.
No, that's fine. But what I mean is, on the computer, you can set up a book on a computer as if you are in your own book-making publishing house.
Yeah.
And you can choose the colors, you can choose the picture on the cover, you can do all of it yourself. And I'm learning a little now. So I'm going to put a book together where you and I are with our arms around each other.
Oh,
We're on the cover, you and me.
Nice.
And you're going to see my book, and you're going to have your face on the cover.
oh, nice.
And the first page is, "We are the evaluators."
Yeah.
And the next page is Sandy's comment, "Slow things down, find out about both parents before you put the children in a home." And that'll be the end of the book. We're already done. Because that's really the whole story. I love it. It's so good to meet other people when you're trying to do something very, very different.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know it. I know it.
Do you access the computer? Do you access the computer?
Yes.
So you know how to get on and look at websites?
Yeah.
I can give...
The thing is, he doesn't like to read. Once I show him computer, and he say, "Hey, somebody sent you email this."
I know, because he's the old school. That's fine. You know, that's
the
fine.
Old school.
Of course, no, but that's good. I like to have something in my hand like
Yeah,
that.
you like that.
It's nicer. I like it too. But if you want, next time I see you, I can give you my website
Yeah.
Yes.
so that you can look.
Absolutely. We'd love that.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize when I came here that I was supposed to meet you.
I hear you.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm over.
How many years in America have you been compared to where you were in Thailand? What's the number of years?
Actually, when the first 25, 26 years in Thailand, and then after that, I traveled. Yeah, I work with the travel agency. So I'm a tour guide. I'm like a tour guide. So I travel until I got the job in California. I'm back home for a year, 2 years. I'm not sure. I'm back here again and married.
But you spent most of your adult life, your later life in America.
Traveling. Yeah.
But most of it in America.
Yeah.
What a nice job, a travel agent.
Yeah.
And now there are not very many travel agents, but AAA has some travel agents over at AAA building.
Yeah. I don't think AAA is still here though. They left. They gone somewhere.
AAA has a few travel guide people on the first floor of the AAA building over here.
Oh yeah.
If you go over to the first floor of the AAA building,
Oh, I
you'll
thought
see
they are. Oh, that's good.
they still have a travel side.
Oh, that's
Because some people are always going to want somebody else to do it for them,
That's true.
right?
Especially
Yes.
payment. We like to pay and we can see if anything happen, we can go to them. Hey, what happened? Because nowadays when you pay, you book the ticket from the computer. Sometimes you go there, it's not show in the airport. Yeah.
That's happening?
Yeah,
Ooh.
it happened. Yeah. Even they say confirm that I give you all kind of confirmation number.
So it's better to have a travel agent when that comes like
For
that.
me, I
Yep.
like that better.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure, Sandy, to meet you and Ed, and we'll catch up.
The pleasure's ours, John.
It is.
Very nice.
How many years together for the two of you? How many years so far?
18,
18. Beautiful.
become 19 few more months.
It's beautiful. You guys get along so beautifully.
We do.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I got tired of getting beat up,
I know you're kidding.
and I said,
He's just kidding, I know.
but anyway, wish you the best, man. Very nice talking to you.
I like that. I got tired of getting beat up. It's called wisdom.
Yeah, it's called when you said it. That's what it is. Take it on the slow bell, John. Old Coast Guard saying, take it on the slow bell.
Oh, thank you. Later on, I'll ask you what that means.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye, my sister.
See you again.
Okay.